Que lo que mi gente, welcome to the Monoplaza F1 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hemi, and this week, as I promised, it's a late episode. Obviously, the race was Sunday, so almost a week ago. A lot happened during the last 6 laps of that race, and a lot happened post race. But yeah, we are going to get into it now. What I will say, a couple things, housekeeping items. Uh, it's gonna be a short episode. Frankly, my assessment of the race is this: laps 1 through 60, laps 60, 61 thereabouts through the end. Excitement. All right. Everything crazy happened during the last couple laps of the race. Yes, I know. Subjective. Yes, I know. Wow. What a deep analysis you are providing on the show. Okay, listen, let's just be honest with ourselves. Uh, Barcelona, Catalunya, where this racetrack is actually one of the ones where 91% of the time, the person who gets pole, in this case, Oscar Piastri, who laid down the gauntlet, by the way, the person who gets pole usually ends up winning the race. So although Monaco gets a bad rap because, hey, everybody who gets the pole usually ends up winning the race, uh, this track, Barcelona, actually has a higher pole to win ratio, statistic, whatever it was. So let's be honest with ourselves, right? Let us not kid ourselves about that race. Um, it was interesting to me, right? A couple things were interesting. Just because Oscar Piastri was able to lay the gauntlet down. I don't know. That's kind of corny when I say it like that. Oscar Piastri was able to come back, put in a crazy pole lap to get on pole, and basically was leading the race from end to end. So, shouts out Oscar Piastri. He is now uh, extended his lead in the WDC by 13 points over his teammate Lando Norris. So, of course, right, as I've been saying, as many people have been saying, McLaren is essentially going to win the Constructors' Championship. Unless something crazy happens, McLaren is going to win, right? And I will consider it a failure for McLaren, okay, if one of those drivers does not win the WDC. This race, we saw that they set themselves apart from the third place champion or former champion, soon to be former champion, third place person, second runner up. I don't know. Basically, they distanced themselves from Max Verstappen, had a bit of head loss. We'll get to that in a second. And basically made it a 2-horse race. So we will see what happens. All right. And for the second week in a row, this will be a podcast where Aston Martin gets a mention. So I'm going to be talking about Aston Martins for all you Aston Martin fans, all 6 of you. Amazing. And we are going to give a shout out to Sauber because they did their thing. First, Gabi Bortoleto and then Nico Hulkenberg showed out. Okay. Yeah. So let's get to it. First and foremost, as always, I like to give a shout out to the winner of the race. First and foremost, shouts out to Oscar Piastri, extended his lead. My man is cool, calm, collected. Honestly, I continue to not doubt. It hopefully is going to be interesting. I think some people were kind of hoping it would be a 2016 Clash style or 2016 Clash style or type crash during this race between Oscar and Lando, but frankly, they don't have the same history as Lewis and Nico did, so it was never going to happen. Yeah, that was never going to happen, right? The two teammates seemed to coordinate really well. Obviously, Lando didn't have as great of a qualifying, so he started the race behind Max, behind Oscar. Yeah, it was a wrap from there. But congrats to Oscar. He won the race over Lando by almost 2.5 seconds. And the podium finisher to round out that podium was going to be Charles Leclerc, right? It was, I don't know, not much for me to say about McLaren on that race. They executed well. Um, right, the car basically showed its pace. Oscar did not miss an opportunity, and it was very interesting because that pole lap that he dunked on Lando was pretty incredible. So for those who like stats, that is Oscar Piastri's 8th podium in a row. He joins rare air in the McLaren family, Senna and Lewis Hamilton, the previous two McLaren drivers, to do that. Of course, I'm always going to give props to Lewis. Lewis did it in his first 8 races. That's still not taking anything away from Oscar, 8 in a row. And I suspect more than 8 in a row, unless he crashes or the car fails for some crazy reason. So yeah, it is nice to see. I am confident in saying that uh, for sure McLaren is going to win. I've repeated it already. And yeah, it looks to be like next year somebody will have the number one that is not Max Verstappen. Of course, Oscar can continue being 81 if he wants. Lando can continue being number 4 if he wants. But there is a higher than likely chance that next year Max Verstappen will revert to 33. All right. So we'll see. Now, whether that'll be a 33 for Red Bull or whether or not that will be a 33 for a Mercedes or an Aston Martin, it is yet to be seen. All right. So we're moving quickly through this race, right? McLaren did great. Now, the thing that I'm going to spend some time talking about was Max Verstappen's race. For the most part, Max, as is usual, per usual, was executing at a high degree, at a high level. The problem for Max came after the safety restart. So right around lap, I'm guessing. All right, I'm not going to look it up, but close to lap 60. I'm going to say lap 55, lap 54. I don't know. I could look this up, but frankly, you can also look it up. All right, right around the 50s. Kimi Antonelli's string of bad races continued. He DNF. By the way, this triple header was terrible for Kimi. All right, and Imola, his home race, he DNF'd. That sucks. In Monaco, he finished P18 and was the only driver to be down 3 laps. That's crazy. And now you round it out in Spain and he DNF. So Kimi drops in the championship standings. So if we look at the drivers, Antonelli is now behind Lewis Hamilton in 7th place. And yeah, it was just not good. He is down 48-71 on Lewis. Obviously, Charles ahead of Lewis, George ahead of Charles, Max, Lando, Oscar finishing it out, right? So not a great race for Kimi. Anyways, when Kimi DNFs, brings out the safety car. To be completely honest with y'all, I think the safety car was out for too long. I don't know. In any case, they decide to bring Max Verstappen into the pits rather than leave him out. So at that point, Max's tires were obviously being worn out. They bring him in. He pits and is fitted with some hard tires immediately. Max is driving on these, and he's like, "What tires are these?" GP responds, "These are the hards, Max." Max responds, "Why? Why are we on this tire? This is a terrible tire." GP then responds, it's all we got, dog. All right, that's it. Take it or leave it, essentially. So that is when trouble starts brewing, simmering for Max Verstappen. All right. At the restart, Oscar takes him away. By the way, shouts out to Oscar. I will continue singing his praises. The kid has got him. He's got a big pair of them, and he's got the fortitude, mental and otherwise. Almost made Lando and Max crash behind him right before the restart. Bunched all those cars up before he took off. Yeah, kid's got the minerals. I'm not gonna lie to you. And so what ended up happening during the restart? Obviously, Charles Leclerc, who was behind Max, saw an opportunity, and of course, why wouldn't he? He's on the better tire compound. Those hards were terrible. Whatever. Max, again, to his credit, um, almost loses control of the car, is able to somehow maintain it. I say somehow, but let's be honest, he's got the skills to do it. He is very good at keeping control of that car. Because of that, Charles is able to execute and pass him. They bumped a little bit. Max was complaining, hey, he rammed me. He needs to give that position back, whatever. So Max was pissed at that point. Simultaneously, while this was going on, George Russell, who never misses an opportunity to try and get a podium, hey, I've got enough laps. Let me also try and do something. He essentially pushed Max wide. Max goes to the off track, comes back in, still ahead of George Russell. The drama really ensued when GP said, hey, Max, we got to give that place back to George. Max, of course, was livid. Why? Why do I got to give that position back? What was funky is what materialized after that. Max said, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't care, sure. He seemingly slowed down to let George pass, but then at the apex sped up and essentially rammed George. So I'm not going to say, hey, that's classic Verstappen. He was probably seeing red. He was probably really pissed off. I'm not going to hold him. I'm not going to hold y'all. I get road rage too. The worst place to get road rage is on a racetrack where you're going in excess of 180, 200 plus miles per hour. But when you're mad, whatever. Surprisingly, the reputation of Mercedes building a tank held up. Neither of those cars sustained any damage, which was wild to me, to be completely honest. It's not like Max T-boned him or anything like that, but nothing. No side pod damage, no front wing damage, no puncture tire, nothing. All right. So that was weird. Of course, the announcers, everybody was, whoa, Max, I'm gonna be real with y'all. That's the Max that has always been there. That Max just was cast aside, put in a room, sat down for a little bit because for 4 years he was essentially dominating. Four in a row, he won. Now that things aren't as sweet, things aren't as easy, hey, bring out old Max, right? What was interesting, what was probably annoying, and what probably was even more frustrating is that post race, turns out Max was not going to get a penalty, and he probably should have never been told to give that position back to George. Now, this is something that like I think is interesting. If you go back to the 2021 season, teams were still allowed to speak to the race director. The race director would be advising them, "Hey, I think you should do this." A bit of a negotiation, but after 2021 and the debacle that was Michael Massey's mistake, um, FIA basically said, no, we're done. No, 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 no. Nobody's talking to the race director. All right. You guys got beef, talk afterwards, but you're not talking in race to the race director. Fine. Max never had to give that position back. Max was then given a 10-second penalty, which, by the way, is super light. A lot of people feel like he should have been disqualified. I'm not here to argue the merits of that. Argue with your mom. I frankly don't care as much. All right. I'm going to be honest. He got demoted from a P4 or P5, sorry, a P5 all the way down to a P10, which essentially drops him back now. So he's got 137 points to Oscar's 186 points. So he is 49 points down on Oscar now, right? Going into Canada, a race that I think should again bode well for McLaren, right? A lot of people this past week obviously have been talking about, oh, Max's anger, and Max just kind of like shut it down. And what I mean by shut it down, post race, he was extremely rude to a lot of reporters. Again, I'm not excusing it at all, and I think it was super immature behavior. The only thing I can understand is when I'm that mad and you're asking me questions, consistently bringing up an event that I'm clearly trying not to talk about because I'm not trying to take any responsibility for that event, then yeah, I'd be pissed too, right? On top of getting that 10-second time penalty, which dropped him from 5 to 10th, Max also received 3 points on his driving license, which now leaves him 1 point shy of a race ban. Now, will Max actually get another point and receive a race ban? I doubt it. I really doubt it. He essentially has until, I believe, Austria before some of those points are going to go away. So if it doesn't happen in Canada, if it doesn't happen in Belgium, if it doesn't happen in Great Britain, then really Austria, by the time we get there, it'll basically give him some cover. All right. Yeah, the last thing I guess that I will say about that is that it is very interesting that again, I make no qualms about being a Lewis Hamilton fan, but it is very interesting to me that Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris are drivers that are seen as emotional, and sometimes people will comment about whether or not, you know, the fortitude, mental fortitude of those drivers, and they say those drivers are too emotional. What is interesting to me is that losing your temper and being angry, isn't that also a sign of not being in control of your emotions? So why is it that when drivers like Lewis Hamilton, drivers like Lando Norris, uh basically bear themselves in front of people and talk about, hey, I'm really down in the dumps, you can see it in my body language, and I'm literally telling you that this race sucked, which was, by the way, Lewis Hamilton after this race, again, people are quick to judge them, right? but you don't often hear a lot about when Max Verstappen loses his temper, whether or not he is in control. Adding on top of that, anytime in the past when Yuki Tsunoda would cuss out his engineers, when Isaac Hadjar would also lose his temper, right? People, oh, those guys and their temper, right? Max does it. He gets some criticism, but nowhere near the level of all the other drivers. I'm just calling it out as a little bit of hypocrisy, but whatever. Max will move on. I gotta be honest with you. I also deal with anger issues. I can't say that I would handle it a little bit different. So really, my critique isn't on how Max is handling his emotions as much as how Max is not being called out by the F1 media and pundits about how his emotions are being handled. Regardless, he finishes P10. Oscar extends his lead, and so again, now it is a 2-horse race between McLarens, and we will see what happens. Now, for Ferrari, they are now P2 in the constructor. Of course, the triple header was not good for Mercedes. That was in P2 because it was only George who was scoring points, and George was only able to score points in Imola, and George was only able to score points in Spain. His teammate was not able to score any points in the last 2 races, so that drops him down to P3. Red Bull, similarly, it's just Max Verstappen. This race, he only scored 1 point. Ended up in P4 in Monaco, and then I can't remember off the top of the dome where he was in Imola either, but now Red Bull is sitting behind Mercedes in the constructors. And just very quickly, let me confirm that. Yeah, Red Bull sitting behind Mercedes. And so I'm going to call it out. This year, I am a Ferrari fan. Nobody dogged me. All right. Y'all know if you've been listening to this podcast why I'm cheering for Ferrari. To be completely honest, it feels like Ferrari is a fraudulent P2. All right. Love the team. Aura Champions 2025. Amazing videography, amazing social media work. Everybody over there deserves a raise. Love it. Right. But they are now P2 in the constructors. I mean, let's be real. They only have a 6-point advantage over Mercedes and then a 21-point advantage over Red Bull. They are McLaren's got more than double what Ferrari has. McLaren's sitting on 362, Ferrari sitting at 165. So even if Ferrari were to double these points, they would still be behind McLaren. All right, that's the dominance of them this year. Shouts out McLaren. All right, Andrea Stella, Zach Brown, all the engineers, amazing. By the way, pause on that. What was supposed to be interesting was that this race introduced new regulations for the front wings, supposed Flexi-Wings that was supposed to, I don't know who was saying this, supposed to even and level the playing field. Nah, that was, you're telling me no. McLaren was, they are not deterred at all. Not one bit. They've known the whole year that this was coming. Matter of fact, with the new regulations, they continue to hold the same advantage, if not a slightly bigger advantage over the rest of the teams. So it is now to the point where teams have to start deciding, hey, we need to focus on the 2026 car. McLaren, maybe they can start shifting gears for 2026 with the new regulations, but yeah, they've got nothing to worry about at this point. All right, cool, done. Back to Ferrari. Charles Leclerc sacrificed his qualifying, started P7, so that he could have a better strategy during the race. He, I guess, picked up on this car can't do any better, so I'm going to save tires and then move up on the field. Lewis Hamilton qualifies him for the second time, but they don't give points for qualifying. All right, it's just starting positions. Now, the talk of the race obviously was that towards the end of the race, obviously Charles was able to take advantage of Max Verstappen's tomfoolery, the team really, and end up on a podium, P3. Charles got a lot of podiums this year, a lot of P3. So shouts out to him. He's doing the thing in a car that is not super. He's getting the most out of it, right? Now, the talking point for everybody was that towards the end of the race, Lewis Hamilton seemed to be losing speed. Now, there were reports that came out later on that the car had suffered some floor damage during the second stint. I'm still looking for that report. Supposedly, Fred Vasseur said it during one of the interviews. Okay, cool. Lewis, on older soft tires than Nico Hulkenberg behind him, was passed easily. And again, this is a shout out that I'm giving to Sauber for doing their thing. Now, what ended up happening was Hulk went from P15 to P5. It's amazing. Prior to that, Gabi Bortoleto was able to qualify higher than Nico Hulkenberg. So it was overall a great weekend for Sauber, which also has a Ferrari engine. All right, let's call it what it is. Um, Not making any excuses, right? Um, Although it'll sound like it, Nico had an amazing race, had some great overtakes, and he was able to put that car into a P5. And the pass he did on Lewis Hamilton was he made that thing look easy. So again, questions arise about, hey, was the car damaged? Was it the tires? Probably a mixture of both. I don't know. Now, for those who are quick to criticize, oh, Lewis Hamilton is not adapting to the team, stop it. Be for real. When you look at Ferrari and the share of points, Charles has a 57% of total points compared to Lewis's 43% of total points. It is probably one of the more closer matched points hauls out of any of the teams. And it goes to speak to people who have made it to new teams. Yuki Tsunoda joined Red Bull, not doing super great. Liam Lawson basically scored his first points during Monaco. Again, even though he's used to that car, not adapting super well. Carlos Sainz was going through a stint where he was doing really well. Again, not adapting super well. It takes time. Esteban Ocon, same thing. All right. But again, the criticism happens to Lewis Hamilton. He's held to a different standard. 8-time world champion, 7-time, 8-time, whatever. I don't care. So sure. That was a big story. The second big story, so again, that was my shout out to Sauber. The second big story is that Fernando Alonso finally got a point for the season. Only took him 9 races to do it. And Formula One made a graphic for that. So we give out participation trophies now. I'm just going to leave it at that. But on the other side of the garage, Lance Stroll, in probably the craziest move that I had heard of in a long time, and just more evidence that anyone who thinks that Lance is not passionate about racing doesn't know that Lance still loves to do this. He withdrew from the race after qualifying, thus making it basically anybody or any reserve driver ineligible to fill the seat. And so Aston Martin was only able to compete with one car. Now, what's interesting about that is that Lance has been dealing with this for about 6 weeks now. And rather than taking some time to recoup and do all of that, he raced through the pain. He was scoring points. Now, it's interesting. Lance was outscoring Fernando Alonso with 2 broken wrists. That was cheap. I'm sorry. But essentially what ended up happening is Lance said, ooh, the pain is too much. I am going to withdraw from the race. Now, his home race is coming up this next weekend in Canada. Reports are now saying that he will probably be able to compete in that, which kind of sucks for the people, specifically Felipe Drugovich, because he is never going to get a chance to race that car in an actual F1 race. Lance could have sat this one out. Lance could have sat this one out and come back after Canada, but nope. I'm either racing in that seat or no one is racing in the seat. And nothing is stopping Lance from doing the same thing again. And if he does the same thing again, it will confirm to me that he is bogarting that seat. It's my team. Aston Martin exists because of me, because my dad bought me a team. Once again, taking this opportunity to say Lance Stroll's biggest crime is having a dad who loves him so much that he bought an F1 team for him. Dang. Anyways, so yeah, we'll see what happens with Aston Martin, but there you go, y'all. That's my shout out to Aston Martin. The super rookie, by the way, so I'm switching gears to Racing Bulls. The super rookie Isaac Hadjar continued to score. The triple header was really great. Isaac Hadjar, to me, is going to be the rookie of the year. Kimi Antonelli, of course, is leading Hadjar atop the driver standings. Makes sense. He's in a better car. But raw talent, execution, skill, all the above, Isaac Hadjar by and far is taking that and doing with that what you will, right? So yeah, that was essentially the race. That is essentially my review. Again, to be clear, for me, the race was exciting during the last 6-7 laps. All right, strategy, whatever. It was great to see Oscar win the race again. It was awesome that his sister Eddie was there to watch him win that race. And yeah, Oscar continues to push it forward. So we shall see what happens. So a bit of housekeeping. I am excited to say that the next time you all will see me will be in Montreal because I am going to be attending the Canadian Grand Prix live. So I'm super excited about that. I'll be bringing coverage from free practice 1, 2, 3 and qualifying. Yeah, super excited. So if you have made it this far, please, please, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. It costs nothing. It is super free. And as always, don't forget to tell your tios, tias, abuelos, abuelas, mamis, papis, vecinos. That's neighbors if you don't speak Spanish. Yeah, thanks for sticking with me throughout this fast run of the Spanish Grand Prix race review for the Monoplaza F1 podcast. My name is Emi Bertre. Peace.